Okay, I did get the signal we are live, and it is 5 p.m. So I'd like to call to order this special meeting of council Tuesday, November 30th at 2021 at 5 p.m. And this meeting is being held electronically via council chambers located at 39 South Shore Road in Lake Cowichan, British Columbia. And before we dive into the agenda, I'd just like to mention that this special meeting is being held on the traditional unceded territories of the Subasat First Nation, people of the lake, where we all live, work, and play together. And with that, I'll call the meeting to order and ask for any introduction of late items. Councillor Austin.
It's not really a late item, but I was just going to say, I guess when you go down to agenda, we probably should remove number 6 because we took that out quite some time ago and it's still on there.
Thank you very much, Councillor Austin. So that would be a deletion of item 6 from this agenda. It's not part of our council procedures bylaw anymore. Everything else is okay. I'll look for a motion to approve this agenda as amended. Moved by Councillor Bomaka, seconded by Councillor Austin. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion carried. Thank you. So, adoption of the minutes, we have none. No business arising, no delegations. We've removed number 6, so number 7 is correspondence. There is none. Reports, we can move right on down to the one and only report from the CAO regarding the Municipal Hall Award. Mr. Fernandez.
Your Worship, I guess I can get on a soapbox now. I generally do like doing that when we deal with budget items. Well, basically what I'm going to say is that we've given lip service to the need for asset management planning. And lately the grant applications have required that we show evidence that we've done exactly that, and we've not been able to do that. So, I think we need to be looking at that, and that would be a budget item for next year that would be coming up. The Director of Finance is probably going to bring that to your attention, and we need to get on that sooner rather than later. Now, the one thing that we have not done in the past, we've done rather not successfully, is the issue of building up reserves. And I mean, the good example is what we are facing now, the issue with the Municipal Hall. We have not put enough away. We should have at least been putting $100,000 a year away, and we would have had a fairly substantial amount now. But we, as usual, when it comes to budgeting, we always like to make sure that the tax increases are kept low, and if we, avoid reserve funds if we can. And so, I mean, that's generally the way we've gone about in our budget process. Good examples this year, we looked at a number, we picked up a number of 2% and said that's the number we would go at. And then we worked around it to make everything else fit. And we even had to take out some monies from surpluses just to make it work. So I think we should start thinking beyond the current year. We should be looking long term. And really, that's why we are now faced with just cost increases that will make this project, if it wasn't for the fact that we have a bit of money in our reserve funds, surplus funds, and the gas tax money, this project probably wouldn't happen. So it's really up to you at this stage of the game to either approve or disapprove or re-tender the project.
Okay, Councilor McGonigal, go ahead.
Thank you, Joseph. And we don't argue the need for asset management or any of the points that you brought up. But I think we as elected officials weigh the means and the process for accommodating tax increases on what our taxpayers can bear. And not just percentage of tax increases, but parcel taxes, water, sewer, parcel taxes, increases in garbage, increases in water services. So we as elected officials try to look at the picture on a whole as a taxpayer basis. And I don't begrudge that CopCam Civil is a very competent and capable contractor. They did a great job on the Mead Creek renovation and refurbishment. So I trust that they are very capable. I am a little surprised that there was only the one tender. And I thought it was important to reflect for at least a week on this and see what the financial implications would be. And you've brought those forward utilizing the Community Works Fund, the Capital Fund, and the Building Reserve Fund. At any time in the past 15 to 18 years, or however long that Building Reserve Fund has been implemented, we could have made those changes to increase the funds put into that. We chose not to for whatever reason. And that leaves us in the predicament that we're in now. I don't have a problem with moving forward, as it is the number one priority in our strategic plan. It is number one on that list, and we are hoping to have that accommodated. And this is not my soapbox, this is just my view. We wanted to have that accommodated before our term is finished, to pass on that facility to the next council that does come in. So with that, I would respectfully look for my colleagues for their input.
Thank you, Councillor McGonigal. Councillor Awesome and Councillor Sandhu.
Thank you. Yes, with showing that there's extra funds that we can pull in to cover most of the cost, it looks good. But I do agree. I know people won't like it, and taxes will have to go up to cover the costs of what people want. People want all these things and in the town, and we have to, as taxpayers, have to pay for it. Taxes provincially and federally will be going up this year as well. That's just life, death and taxes. That's what happens. But I think this is fine. I think we should go forward with this and get it done finally before I kick the bucket. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sandhu, sorry.
Thank you. So currently, what have we spent with the budget we have up to 2021, like in the building renovation budget? Like, what has been spent to date, and what is the balance in there right now moving forward?
I'll let the Director of Finance answer that.
Ms. Gill.
You mean the balance in the reserve fund right now?
For the building, yeah, for the.
Yeah, it's over $1 million. Yeah,
It's over $1 million? Okay.
Yeah,
And,
$1,060,000 or something like that.
okay. And so far up to date on the renovation, we've spent about 700 and something thousand dollars, or was it more than that? Like from the start of,
So you mean
we've
including
spent money
architectural?
on-
I'd have to go back and look because it has spanned several years. If that's a number that you're interested in knowing.
well, I'm just curious as to what we started out with in 2021 and how much. So there's $1 million in there, a little over $1 million in there right now. So I just need you to explain the budget 2022 and 2023 so I can understand how we're going to, if we approve this, how we're going to move forward now with it. Like, what will we get for our buck now before the 2022 budget begins?
We just got and the demolition of the base. That's what we've done so far.
Okay.
I think,
Okay,
yeah.
That wasn't the question.
so Ms. Gill, can you respond to Councillor Sandhu as best you can?
Yeah, so the budget there is over 2 years to complete the $2.6 million project, and the financing that is shown over the 2 years, what's coming from capital, what's coming from reserve, and what is coming from the gas tax funds. So you can see the project costs required to complete, and then also the funding over the next 2 years, what that's going to be.
So would it make sense for us to, and I'm just throwing this out there, so don't everybody panic, that if we're gonna budget these funds the next 2 years, why not borrow the money and get this project done?
I think that it'll probably, depending on when we get started, it may not happen over 2 years, or it might take the 2 years, I think is the understanding, or my understanding.
Well, I can't see that renovation taking 2 years for a company, but if it's gonna take 2 years because of our budget, that's why
No,
I'm
sorry. It'll take 2 years because if we start, we might not start till January or February. I don't know what the start date is. And it might go till January or February the following year. If you finish construction in December even of next year, the bills won't be coming in until after completion, and there'll be the holdbacks and 45 days later. So it'll fall into the 2022 budget. Even if it might, if it's completed late December type thing.
And okay, and my understanding is the company was willing to start next week if they were given this. So does that still stand now with us delaying the approval or whatnot a week? Did that make any difference?
It makes a difference, yeah.
So are they unable to start next week then if they were given this
Well,
contract?
Because we've got to sign a contract. That's one of the first things that's got to be done. They've got to organize themselves. It'll take a bit of time. So I would say.
So is staff going to push it to January, February, or are we going to, like, when the
We're gonna
company can
start
start, we're going to start?
As quickly as we can.
So
That doesn't answer my question. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You're just kind of sugarcoating it. So I would like clarity. If this passes, whatever happens tonight, I would just like council to know when they can start and once we know what their time frame is. Thank
the
you.
realistic answer.
Well, I can't give you a realistic answer. It will depend on what happens tomorrow. If council approves it today, I will have to then take it to the architects and the contractor and get a firm date. I can't speak for the contract.
And sorry, and that's what I'm asking is that we get an actual date.
We'll do that.
Okay, Mr. Fernandez, your hand was up just before that response. So did you have something else?
Yeah, I did. I mean, if this is completed by next year, we have the funds to complete it. It's not an issue of being short funded for this project. We can complete it unless the director wants to correct me on that. I think the entire project can be, no? Yeah, it can be paid for next year, by the end of next year.
Okay, so, and just to make sure there's no gray area, without a tax increase to fulfill the numbers before us, but going back to your soapbox speech, that may require some form of extra taxation to refill some accounts.
No, I may want to rephrase that.
Okay,
There may be a requirement to look at tax increases to fund some other capital projects we may have.
okay. Okay, Councillor Bomaka.
Thank you. I'm a little torn with this one because I think probably about 6 years ago, anyone can correct me if I'm wrong, we had 1.8 hundred-thousand in reserves to go ahead with this project. So we have $1 million left, which means we put like $800,000 already into the project. And now we have to spend another $2,600,000. So when this is all said and done, we're looking at over a $3,400,000 project. And I, in good faith, had a hard time 6 years ago saying 1.8 million. And I'm struggling today to go to the public with a $3,400,000 town hall renovation. And the big question is had we got on this 6 years ago, instead of chasing grants, would it have been a lot less at that time? So that's just my thoughts tonight. Thank you for listening.
Go ahead, Councilor McGonigal, then I'd like to have a turn as well. Thank you.
I'll yield to you. You haven't gone yet. You're a first-time speaker. Go ahead.
Oh, that's so gracious of you. So thank you very much. And, you know, like, great comments from everybody. But for what it's worth, and knowing a little bit about hard construction costs on sites, you know, and buildings like this, and I'm not saying this just to get this project going, but I think the 2.6 seems like a reasonable amount of dollars. And Councilor McGonigal made a great point earlier. COPCAN is a first class. There's going to be no monkeying around with this. It's going to be, you know, done properly. And, you know, as for their comments in the staff report, which I was going to ask Joseph to go back to and talk more to that than responsible budgeting by council, but maybe we can ask him enough questions to fill all the blanks. That they will do that, and they've stated it, and it sounds like they're willing to put that in the agreement as well. My only concern would be is perhaps that we talk about time constraints, and, you know, when they need to be done and things like that.
I could answer that. They had given 10 months as a commitment to complete the project from start date of December 6th.
Okay. All right. So, yeah. So I think it's obvious that the number doesn't scare me. I didn't think probably 8 years ago when we started looking at drawings that it was a $1 million project. And in today's dollars, as Councilor Vomac expressed her thing, if we could have got going on this earlier, it could have been less. And of course it could have been, I mean, substantially less probably, but here we are today. And that's it for me. Mr. Fernandez. Yeah,
it was never $1 million or $1.8 million project. The last time we went out for tenders, it was over $4 million. It was 8 years ago. It was a bigger project.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Councilor McGonigal, sorry.
All good. And I was going to point out to the plans that were implemented in the initial stage of looking at an expansive project that incorporated the town hall, the library, and perhaps the health unit at that time was the discussion. And that was over $6 million for that project. It just didn't seem feasible in 2006. You can imagine, had we gone through with conceptual drawings and architectural drawings of that, what the cost of that would be today. It would be over $10 million. I think the inflationary rate and the construction costs are conducive of the proposed financing. But when you take into consideration the amount of work we've already done, whether it be the demolition of the bays, the asbestos abatement, the asbestos remediation, the roof, the heating system, we have done considerable work already to get the project to the point where it is. We've had problems, and I'll be quite frank, with the architects coming through in a timely fashion on tender documents and others, and I apologize if they're watching, but that's my feeling. I do have a question, if I may. Should this be approved tonight, what sort of project management are we looking at? Would that be incorporated within the capacity we currently have? And if so, would that put added pressure on staff that are currently looking at getting other duties that we put upon them done? So just wondering on those points.
Okay, I can answer that. It will be no different than the water treatment plant. The general contractor will be responsible for the overall management of the project. The architect will be the consultant who will be providing the day-to-day or the week-to-week instructions. And so they will be the project consultant, and the civil engineers, electrical and mechanical engineers will also be involved. So my involvement is very minimal. I'd be dealing with change orders, approving progress payments, and occasionally being consulted by the consultant. I'd also be relying on the our building inspector to help us with the project. And staffing will be minimal.
And a follow-up, if I may.
Okay,
In the architect's award of their pricing, was that included? Should that be awarded to the
That
contractor?
was, yeah, it'll be not, it was already included in the overall project drawings, the overall architectural drawings, the bulk of it's been paid out. And so we will have to pay them just on an hourly basis for managing the project.
And finally, that's already been budgeted for in their incorporated costs?
It'll be slightly higher than it's going to be over this amount of money.
Thank you.
Councillor Sandhu.
Thank you. A few of the questions that Councillor McGonigal had is my concerns too, is if we're paying the architect hourly on top of the project to be the consultant, I'd really like to find out what that cost may be. And would it be cheaper to do another route? Because I don't believe architects are cheap by the hour. And I would rather see that kind of money go back into the building than in that direction. So yeah, that concerns me, paying them hourly to be a project consultant on this. I think we've got staff that could liaise on between the architect, but that's just me and whatnot, and get this done in a more cost-effective manner.
So my understanding of the process of these style of projects, and then I'll let Mr. Fernandez, is that the architect will have to be involved for any technical aspects that the generals have questions for. So they're going to have to be paid hourly anyways.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to be proven wrong there. It's just that's been my experience in these type of projects, that they're with the project all the way along the way anyways. So
They're responsible for the overall project because they've done the drawings. And you're correct, Mr. Worship. I think you've got to leave it to staff to handle it. If you're going to look at the minor details, then you might as well take it out of our hands and give it to somebody else and let them run with it. I think it's gotten to a point where we're going to nitpick on this project and it's not going to go anywhere.
go ahead, Councillor Sandhu.
Just for clarity, I'm not trying to nitpick or tell staff what to do. What I'm trying to understand is what the bottom dollar is going to be at the end of the day for this project for them to be the consultant. And as an elected official, I have the answer to the public. So I actually want an answer to that and not be disrespected with my question.
Okay.
Councillor McGonigal, and go ahead.
So just for clarity, I think within COPCAM, they do have the civil engineering portion within their division. And I'm sure they would be deemed the project overseer in the project. And I'm just trying to clarify a few things. And the architect would be in consultation with that civil engineer. Would there be questions on whether it was the geotechnical aspect of the bay removal that we just did, or the weight loads, etc.? That's where the consultation would come into play with the architects on design and capacity, if I'm not mistaken. And within the renovation and refurbishment of Mead Creek, the architect was also involved in some aspects along the way of that project, similar to this, in a capacity for consultation through the project. I'm a little bit leery, but I don't want to re-tender this, given the timing and the status that it has within our strategic plan. You have to remember that the town of Lake Cowichan has never, I'll say it again, never had a municipal building. We were in the Mildred Child to begin with. The fire department was in the facility that we currently reside in as a co-resident. This would be a dedicated space, accessible to all, with dedicated accessible washrooms. I like the concept on paper. Now I want to see it in bricks and mortar.
Go ahead, Councillor Austin.
One other thing, I believe we're going to have a generator there, so it will be kind of an emergency center when there are issues within the town, which is a good thing because I'm not sure if that's happening anywhere else in town at the moment. So none of us like to spend that extra money, but like when we go right now to the grocery store, we see a loaf of bread, it's now $6, a good loaf of bread, I mean. Things like that. I know it's tough and it's hard, and I'm hoping we'll have enough money to complete this, and I'm hoping we can get this going as soon as possible.
Okay, so in summary, what I've heard around the table here, I had the very same concern and expressed it to the CEO about a week or so ago that, you know what, it just seems for the, not just since I've been mayor, but before that, it's always been, we're waiting for the architect, and that was a red flag for me. But I believe at this stage, when you move into construction stage, that it's not going to be the architect that holds up things. It's going to be the crew, and they're not going to wait for an architect. They're mobilized. They'll be on site if we approve this, and they need to keep working. So they won't stand for any work stoppages and have to pay people, because they don't just come from Duncan to do this work. They come from all over the place because they're very specialized. So I understand Councillor Sandhu's concerns. So perhaps the CEO, I noticed there's cost savings already in this project, but perhaps you could nail down some an idea of the cost of what it's going to take for the architect to fulfill their obligations throughout this project if it's approved. And I think that's a fair request to get an idea of where that's going to be at. The one question that I haven't heard come up, or maybe Councilor McGonigal brought it up and I didn't hear the word contingency, but I heard it last meeting. So is there roughly the standard 10% or 15% or whatever the number is built into the budget on this to manage those kinds of things? And I know that if they run into these things, that it's kept track of, like it was with Meads Creek, on a monthly basis. And if there's overruns, there's meetings, and people have to approve these. So is there contingency funds built into the project budget?
Well, it's about $100,000 at this stage of the game. Yes.
That's the end of my soapbox. Go ahead, Councillor Sandhu.
Well, I'm just going to make a motion that we award, where's the recommendation? That the municipal hall renovation project be awarded to Copcan Civil LP with a commitment by the bidder to working with the town. Is that the recommendation?
That's a recommendation.
Yep.
Okay, to reduce the overall cost while providing the town with a superior finished product as envisioned in the tender drawings.
Okay, that's moved by Councillor Sandhu. Looking for a seconder, Councillor Austin. Is there any further discussion? And before anybody's hand goes up, if it does, this was well worth the discussion. So I'm glad we set it aside from the rest of the items on the last agenda. Councillor McGonigal.
And I appreciate everyone's candidness and the difficulty in getting to this final point. And there was no intention of disparaging remarks to anybody if it came across like that. We are just concerned on some of the estimates that have been brought forward, and rightfully so as elected officials, I think. So if there was any underlying tones, I do apologize if they came from me.
Okay. I don't see any other hands, so I will call the question then. All those in favor of the recommendation? And opposed? One opposed. Councillor Omaka, would you like that recorded? I think that you said sure. I can't.
I'm fine. Either way, doesn't matter.
Okay.
I'm good. I'm just having flashbacks to the water treatment plant and about all the cost overruns and the job going on forever and costing us a lot more money. And I can't see this being completed for that amount of money in that time frame. So that's why I respectfully have to say no. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so that motion does pass. And that was the only item on this agenda. So we can go to question period. Yes, can't forget about that. Where members of the public can dial in or email starting now to 250-749-6681 extension 102 or email to general@lakecowichan.ca. Once again, that phone number for questions to items on this agenda is 250-749-6681 extension 102, or you can email to general@lakecowichan.ca, and we'll give you 3 minutes to call or email, and that'll bring us to 5:34-ish. So see you all then. All right, we're about halfway past 5:34, so if everybody wants to reappear. Mr. Fernandez, any telephone calls or emails?
Nothing at all.
Okay, thank you. So just a reminder to any members of the public that could be watching tonight that you can always call or email and have your questions answered to those numbers and that email address. So with that, we can move to adjournment now. Somebody want to move that? Councillor Bomaka, seconded by Councillor Sandu. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? We are adjourned, and I guess we'll see you all again probably on Thursday morning at 10 a.m. Should be a great meeting there. Councillor, or Mr. Fernandez, do you have something to say?
No, I was just going to say goodnight.
Oh, okay.
Can I just ask a question about Thursday? It says 10 till noon, but I have something on that morning. Do you think it
Yeah.
will go the full 2 hours?